I'm with Roark Pollock from Ixia and Paul Davies from Verizon, and we're here to talk about stress testing cloud applications and infrastructure. So Roark, what are the main challenges when testing dynamic services in a real-world environment?
I think there's two big challenges. The first one's going to be the industry as a whole. We really need to get testing out of the domain of the QA engineer. We need to move it beyond just QA, and that means both moving it back into the development process, so being able to make testing part of an agile development process, so you're doing testing on a daily, on a weekly basis as you're developing ops or applications and services, and also moving testing into the production environment itself. And not testing as we think of testing in a lab environment, but monitoring, visibility, assessment, being able to see what's happening with those applications in a real-world environment. If we can do those two things, then we've got testing throughout the entire life cycle of the process of an application, from development all the way through to its operation. So that's one problem. The other one is being able to, you ask, how do we do testing in a real-world environment? And so real-world environment means that we know what that real world looks like. And so we have to understand what exactly is happening in that real world, and understand what applications are running, what are the loads, and be able to apply that when we do our testing throughout that entire process.
Paul, how valuable is testing and how do you make use of the results?
So when we think about testing in the context of cloud services, I mean, I think there's two different ways we could think about this. There's our own services that we deliver to the market. By the time I'm personally involved in leveraging those services, we're at a point where all the component parts have been through rigorous testing, and that process is hugely important. At the time we're taking these kinds of services to market, perhaps different to some of the other services you'd see from a provider like Verizon, there is the opportunity, not in every case, but in some cases, to think about taking those to market in a sort of an alpha state, and then later in beta, working in partnership with some of the larger customers to sort of tune the service so that it's really fit for the rest of the market. But we always have to do that with a lot of transparency so that they understand what's happening. The other context in which I would answer that question is from the perspective of our enterprise customers who are consuming our cloud services. So we're typically delivering those more mission critical, difficult applications to deliver where security and compliance obligations are important. Necessarily, our enterprise customers see the need for testing. They often have tools that they're leveraging themselves to perform that kind of stress test. Sometimes they'll look for a provider like ourselves to assist them, and we have teams of people in professional services who can do very similar activity to complement the work that our customers are doing. So I think that they do recognise the need, and they have to do these things quickly because often these applications are changing very, very fast. The drops of new code, more than a couple of times a week. So fast iterations is important.
Okay, what about the future of testing? Can test equipment manufacturers keep up with real-world developments?
Absolutely. I think the test manufacturers are already keeping up with the industry, if not ahead of the industry to some extent. Most all of our test applications today are all virtualized. They can be consumed on demand. We've moved beyond the days of just having large chassis of test equipment. And we've moved to a point where you can spin up test capabilities, use them on demand, and then turn them down, move them around the world to somebody else that needs those services. So, where we're going, I think from a testing standpoint, is testing becomes a full life cycle process. And Ixia is really well positioned in this regard, but it goes from the very beginning of the application, its conception and its development, through QA into the production network. And then once you have visibility of what that production network looks like, it's being able to turn that intelligence of what that real world looks like and the intelligent information around those applications, and being able to automatically spin that back into the test packs that you would use to then test the application development for the next agile cycle and keep that loop always going.
Paul and Roark, thanks very much for joining us.
Absolutely.